Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella, the Listening Mentor. This program is all about a new children's book series that I am co-writing with Mariska Dupree. And our first book is officially finished. We are just doing the editing and working with the illustrator. So I just wanted to review with you what the first book is about, and also the second book is in the process of being written, and it's very exciting. The whole purpose of this children's series of books is to help teach the kiddos and their family members how to listen to each other, and how not only to listen, but how to listen with an open heart. So if you're familiar with any of my work that I do on this platform, I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and also the work I do off of this platform. I coach people, I teach people, I train people how to listen at an elevated level, and then I go ahead and I certify them. And the course that I used to certify is called The Power of Listening. It's a 2-hour course, and once you're finished, you take a quiz, and then you get certified when you get 100%. So I started thinking, how can we actually help children learn how to listen? I know myself, with a master's degree and a doctorate and many certifications, I never took a course in listening. I took courses in English, I took courses in communication, but there was very little information about what it means to truly be present and what it means to listen. So I thought, if we can get on the bandwagon and teach youngsters how to listen from a very early age, we can eliminate decades of undoing all of the behavior issues that come up as a matter of not actually listening to each other. So therefore, the book series. Now, you may be wondering, where did I come up with the name? Lady Ella is actually baby Ella, and she is my great niece. Her name is Ella, and her parents, Kim and Tyler Wilson, were kind enough to permit me to dedicate this book series to baby Ella, who will be 1 next month, and I'm actually calling her Lady Ella. So she is the star of the show, along with some other wonderful animal characters. What you need to know, what I want you to know, is that each of the animal characters you see on the book cover are actually representing human beings, people who have become elevated listeners by taking my course, The Power of Listening. So we are actually going to be visiting with one of the animal characters from this particular book series. And I just want to give you a few details about what you can expect when you're reading this book. This book takes place on Gentle Farm, and Gentle Farm is a place that Lady Ella, the listening mentor, is visiting. So Lady Ella looks like this. This is her character. You can see she has gold wings, and she has a necklace on that has her name, Ella. And I am actually the ladybug, Lady Ella, the listening mentor. So I travel to Gentle Farm, and when I arrive, I understand that there's been something going on there. So you'll see we have a fence, and on one side we have the farm animals, and the other side we have the forest animals, and something actually takes place. And as a result of the wonderful animal characters that are on this book, covered in this book, they're able to work together with Lady Ella to learn how to listen. One of the animal characters, the white lioness, Sikiliza, which actually means to listen, is here with us today, JenettaBarry. Before I bring her out, I'm really excited to announce a rough draft, just going to show it to you quickly, of what the second book cover looks like. It's already with the illustrator, so we're moving forward. All right, I'm going to just share a little bit about some of the other animal characters, and I see Jenetta is backstage, so look forward to bringing her out. In this first book, we have the red ibis, we have the gazelle, the horse, the cow, the orangutan, the owl, the panther, and we also have the lioness. And the wonderful news is we have the lioness right with us today, JenettaBarry and the Epiphany Process. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Lovely to be back again.
So nice to have you, Jenetta. Are you currently in Africa?
I am currently in Africa. I got back from walking my dogs, and Andy, my partner, was cooking supper and he was late. So it was like a dash along the airstrip alongside the zebras and the warthogs, and like, I'm late. I'm late for a very important date.
Well, I'm glad that you made it. And I just was giving our audience a little bit of an overview about the 7-book series, and that you are in the first book, which is fabulous. And I'd love for you to tell our audience a little bit about how you designed this character and how you came up with the name.
Well, I'm from Kenya, and I always joke and say I'm a Maasai in disguise, and people stop and go, "Really? You're a Maasai?" Because Maasai is one of the prominent tribes here in Kenya, in East Africa, in actual fact. And I always say, yeah, because I'm 5 foot and very white, and the average Maasai is very tall and quite dark. But jokes aside, one of the things that I've realized, that one of the characteristics over the years with what I've been through, I've realized is that courage and strength of a lion is something I very much identify with. So when we talked about this character for this book, I immediately knew it would be a white lion. Now, a white lion is very different from an ordinary colored lion. And most people think, well, isn't that an albino, or an albino, as we say in UK? But an albino, a pure albino, has pink eyes. But a leucistic albino lion, or any a leucistic animal, they look white, but when you go up close, they've got a bit of a pattern on them, and they retain their eye color. It doesn't go pink. So we decided that because of my hair and my very white skin and my blue eyes, we would create this beautiful white lion, and they are out there in Africa. There are quite a few leucistic lions around Africa. So that's the character I took on. And then Sikiliza is a Kiswahili word, which means, really directly translated, I listen. And my job is about listening to people in new ways and teaching them to listen and respond in new ways. So being part of Dr. JACALYN's Elevated Listeners and being in this type of work, it was a no-brainer to step in and create this very special little lioness. I'm very fond of her. She's also very connected to another story, if we've got time. Otherwise, we'll use it another time. In my getting married soon. So it's been a wonderful synergy, and just delighted to have Sikiliza part of our book and the Elevated Listeners side of life.
Thank you so much, Jenetta. And of course, we'll have to hear that fabulous story. I know the story, and it's definitely worth sharing. Before we get to that, in this book, which will be available November 26th. We're actually going to start pre-selling it in a couple of weeks. That's super exciting. The animal characters all have to actually take a look at themselves and how they're treating others and how they're treating themselves. And this is something that we need to do across humanity, is how are we showing up when we are in an engagement with someone, in a conversation with someone, when you first meet someone. How many times does it happen someone will say, hey, how are you? And the other person's already gone. They just kept going, and even though it's a nicety, we really don't listen to each other. And when we don't listen to each other, all kinds of unpleasant things can happen. Can you share more about that?
Yeah, very much so. So often we're anticipating what the other person is trying to say or is saying in our value system. I've noticed this. And funnily enough, whilst I was wolfing down my dinner tonight, Andy, my partner, was in great exasperation because a service provider, three different service providers have not listened to what he wanted. They've anticipated, half listened, so busy asking questions that weren't relevant, and then not providing the service. And I think that's the big thing, is that when one can understand that it isn't always about asking the questions and then anticipating what the answer is. It's about going still, asking a question, and listening to every single word that's being said in that person's value system. And that's why I thought Sikiliza was such a great way of encapsulating that, saying, when I stop and I observe and I listen, which lions do, they do stop. Okay, they do stop to look at their prey, but they do. You can hear, and they're listening out to what's happening, and they're watching and they're observing. And when a lion doesn't do that, they end up not in a very good place. So yeah, it is. It's about being able to take the distracting internal conversations that we all run inside us and have used as a coping mechanism, and to be able, when you can manage that conversation inside yourself so it's not ruling and running you, then you listen differently. And that's what the elevated listeners side that Dr. JACALYN teaches people all the time is all about. Is it's about listening differently. It's one thing listening, and it's another thing listening effectively. And it makes a world of difference, because you're hearing things that you miss if you're not doing it effectively.
Brilliant point, Jenetta. Thank you. And what I was saying at the start of the show is one of my passions and my mission about creating this book series, and also the Power of Listening and the Listening Mentor, is to get people engaged as early as possible to learn how to listen. And then for those of us who are older and have been listening for decades, how can we undo the damage that we've done when it comes to listening at an effective level? What are your thoughts? I know in the work that you do, in your own personal experience, you've worked with people from all different generations. What would it be like if we lived in a world where we learned to listen at an elevated level from when we were children?
Would make a huge difference. I know in my work, the younger I start with the children, the better. And in fact, children are actually quite tuned in. We become less and less tuned in as we get older, and the more noise and distraction of, I suppose, experience starts coming in instead. Because I've noticed that when we start talking differently to children and listening differently, communicating differently with them, they're one step ahead of us. Often I have a set of questions I use, and often as I'm asking them, they're either replying before I finish the question because they're on the same page, or they're finishing the question and it's accurate. So they're not anticipating from a place of triggers and emotional side. They're listening, they're accurate, they're in tune, they know exactly what I'm talking about, and they're one step ahead of me. Whereas when we become adults, we try and stay that one step ahead and think we know what it's about, but the distraction of life and experiences and charges and wrongdoings and coping mechanisms actually it filters in and it distorts that listening. So I'm really passionate about this. The younger that children start understanding that they don't have to change that type of listening, if they can carry on practicing listening the way, or continue listening the way they know is a natural way to listen without being distracted. I just believe that communities would be able to come into problem solving, negotiation skills, empathy skills, all those things, so that because this isn't about creating peaceful societies, because you can't have angst without peace. The two are part of the whole, but it's showing societies how to listen correctly from childhood, so that their negotiation skills, listening skills, communication skills, empathy skills create a harmony that is a balance of challenge and a balance of acceptance. When you've got that happening, it'll be magical and can be magical. And there are communities that are managing this. Not many, but there are, and it makes a huge difference.
Thank you, Jenetta. And when you share the information you just shared, it's actually shocking that every type of school, any kind of outlet where they're teaching education, that they're not teaching this right away. In the book and on the book cover, as we see it here, there is clearly a fence dividing the farm animals and the forest animals. And I did that on purpose to illustrate, as the book goes through, the children and their parents will see that the farm animals are on one side and the forest animals are on the other side. And they make judgments about each other because they don't know each other. And yet, in some ways, they're afraid of each other, or they're envious of the other. And we do this all the time in life. But when you actually look at it like that, by putting a fence up, and animals, they look different than one another, they sound different than one another, it's easy for people to recognize, oh, okay, they're on the forest side, they're on the farm side. But yet in real life, we do this on a regular basis, and we continue it as the new generations are born. There is that fence, that line in the sand. Why don't we just rip that fence out and say we're all the same? We're all like one another. We all have a purpose here. Let's learn how to listen to each other and find out what that is for you and for me.
Yes, I agree. And as much as we're the same, we're also not. And it's being able to understand the value in not being all the same, because I am white and I'm not a black Maasai, and I have been brought up differently to any person brought up in a manyatta, because they're nomads. I am different, but essentially how we feel and how we want to feel as human beings is there. And I believe that it starts with shifting teachers, because teachers come through with their filters. I mean, if I think back to my childhood here in Kenya, I went to a convent. The nuns were clearly out of touch with life and teenagers, because they'd never got married or had relationships or anything like that. And they were from Ireland, they were Irish nuns. So there was a great gap there. And those that weren't nuns, some of them had some pretty big hang-ups as teachers. not so nice experiences for a lot of us as pupils. And I just think that as much as it's getting to start with the children, it's also changing the schooling system and shifting the teachers to open their hearts too. Because when your heart is open, you listen. When you've got an open heart and you're in a place of sense of presence and sense of acceptance and a sense of unconditional love, and that unconditional love is accepting that I'm different but the same, then they're the example setters for the next generation. So I think it, as much as it starts bringing it into the schools for the children, the teachers perhaps are the first that require to be shown the way. And I feel quite passionate about that.
It has to start somewhere with someone, right? Why not with the teachers? Absolutely. You know, I had the opportunity to just randomly, as I was out, observe a child and the child's parent. And it was interesting because as I was walking up, the child was communicating, trying to say something. I could hear what they were trying to say to their parent, and the parent just kept telling them to be quiet. And I thought, I had no judgment, but I thought, isn't this what happens? We're told, just be quiet. You're making too much noise. Sit in your room, stay in your room, keep your mouth shut. And we take these things internally. And what would it be like if, as a young person, as a child, we were listened to instead of just annoying someone because they have something else that they need to do or something else is more important? Maybe that's where it all starts. It's the first time that we're told to just be quiet.
Yeah, it could very well be that. And of course, we all say, well, I'm not going to do that. I can remember, I'm the mother of 4, and I can remember, and my parents were pretty cool parents. I really enjoyed my childhood with my parents. But I can remember going, well, this is where it did go wrong. So this is how I'm going to be different, and putting my newborn baby, my firstborn, into my arms and going, I'm going to get it so perfectly right. And I think that's the other thing is to, that's what I was going to say first before this was, you know, then as they got older, stuff would come out my mouth and I'd go, oh gosh, that's my mother or that's my father. And it was the stuff that I always judged in them. I went, there it is, because we've learnt it. And it wasn't until I'd been through what I have been through in losing a child the way I've lost her that I realized that a lot of parents are working from a place of guilt, that they're not perfect parents and they need to be perfectly perfect to bring up a perfectly perfect child, because that was the vow I made with my eldest. And it's taken me all these years to realize that it's about as much being imperfectly perfect, and that sometimes there is value in not listening to your child. Not that I'm saying you shouldn't do it all the time, but it teaches your child perhaps to step forward and go, hey, Mum. In fact, I remember my last one finally in exasperation one day saying, you know, Mum, when I talk to you, you're distracted. You're really distracted. You're not listening to me. And she was all of about 8 or 9 years old. She says, I know you're not listening to me. Because I was driving and thinking, I've got to get this and buy that. And yes, Catherine, yes, yeah. So it gave Catherine skills to step forward and negotiate with me and to understand where the imperfection was and bring a bit of empathy. Because when I stopped and I said, oh, you're absolutely right, Catherine, I'm not listening to you, it created a bond that if I was always listening to her would have been missing. So I really do believe it's about not getting it perfectly right, because you'll always perfectly fail. It's about understanding that when you start listening differently, there'll be times when it works and times when it doesn't, but you've got the skills to do it. And when it doesn't, it gives you the opportunity to hone it and become even better at it. Like any skill, there are times you do it better than others, and you've got to practice. And you're not going to get, if you're a javelin thrower, you're not going to get to the sports ground and throw that javelin perfectly right every time. So for me, my biggest aha was about learning to listen as an elevated listener is about cutting yourself some slack and being gentle on yourself, seeing the value of being aware that listening is very valuable and that you're fine honing and getting better and better and better at it. And that when you do not do it quite as you would like to, your child or whoever it is you're doing with it is gaining skills in another direction that would be missing if you got it always bang on the nail right. And that's been a big, big one for me. I now have conversations with my children that are very real, very authentic, and allow us both to be, or all of us to be human and to err. And when we err, we're soft on each other. Whereas before I was this, I have to get it all right, and you better get it all right because I'm getting it all right, and I want perfect children. So it is about finding that balance.
Balance is key. Absolutely. How many times have you personally, or has this happened, where you're going to have a conversation with someone and you know it's going to be uncomfortable, and the conversation starts off, okay, here we go. Just let me have it. Just put it out there. We're already not listening, right? We've already made judgments in our mind about how the things are going to go. And sometimes we're actually surprised at the outcome or the direction. And if we were open more, as opposed to just being, let's just get this over with. Like if you go see your boss or you have an argument with your partner, it's like, okay, I know we got to have this conversation. Let's just do it. And now we're causing even more problems because we've made decisions about how it's going to go and what the outcome is going to be.
I so agree. It's that angst, that level of angst that brings in a coping mechanism that makes us almost defensive and anticipating what it will be like. This is, okay, I'm going to defend myself, so this is how it's going to be. And it's really difficult when you've already planned out what they're going to say or do. And how often also, here's another one, afterwards we sit there going, I should have said that, and I should have said that, and that doesn't help anybody. But as you were saying, when you're in that place of centered, open-hearted presence, you're present with the person, and you're not having to defend yourself, and you're not having to justify or explain or try and shut them down because you don't agree with them or think that they're going to say things that you won't agree with. When you just sit and listen. I had a very interesting one, Andy, my partner, the other day. We're settling in a new place together, and that always comes with a lot of stress. And something happened and was said, and in years before, I'd have gone away hurt and seething and how dare they, and that's not on, and who, I don't deserve, and all those mixed up feelings in having heard what I heard from past filters. But instead, I was able to hear somebody who was feeling out of sorts and not in their comfort zone and not coping. That's what I heard instead. And I was able to put my hand on his shoulder and say, whatever you said then, not kind of cool, but what's this about? And that's how he and I have learned to communicate with each other, because it works the other way as well. And that's the difference, is you start hearing differently. And it's so empowering. Instead of hearing how hurt you are, or hearing the words and only hearing them. Instead, you're hearing and seeing and feeling what's actually going on. And it cuts away that whole story. How dare you, and you shouldn't, and I don't deserve it. All those self-protection statements peel away as you listen and respond from what actually is happening.
Good examples, Jenetta. Thank you. And it sounds like to me, from what you're saying and also what my experience is, our first go-to is to defend ourselves, is to put up a wall. So we have no idea what the other person is going to say, but we do know that we will not be wrong. I am not going to lose this discussion with you. I am the victor. I'm going to come out victorious. And therefore, I'm putting up my wall, my shield, my armor, everything that I can do. And you have to try to climb all the way up and get over it.
It's so true. And the more I work with this work, the more I realize when we go into that defensive mechanism and put up our guard, it's actually saying, don't call me a name, because that means, or don't say that about me, or don't take that action about me, because it means you don't love me. And I want to be loved and lovable. So that defense mechanism is saying, please don't do that, because I want you to rather say, I'm okay, I'm lovable, I'm acceptable. And when you get over all that, I call it a whole dance, and I watch it when I work with couples, and I'm sitting there with, each side going, ga-dunk, 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 and that one's got that story, and this one's, and they're both saying, love me. That's what they're actually saying. Either love me to stay together or love me enough to part, because it's not always about making sure they reconcile. It might be the end of that era of that relationship. You just don't know. But when they're able to peel away the defense mechanisms that makes them go, I am lovable, I am okay, I am this, I am that. When they peel that all away and talk from that open-hearted, authentic place, suddenly powerful words come out their mouths, and they're going, really, to each other, really? Oh, okay. And the charge is gone. And suddenly solutions come through, either solutions to stay together or solutions to part. And it becomes really powerful. It blows me away. I just sit there going, wow, I really feel like the conduit. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
I love what you're sharing here, because we want to feel loved. We want to feel respected and appreciated. And I know myself that I've been guilty over this, but in the past, holding on to some memory that was so painful and then bringing it up to the other person over and over again. Well, 10 years ago, you did this, or 5 years ago, you said that. And as though today, anything the person could say or do is going to alleviate what happened 10 years ago. But it was, no, you didn't love me 10 years ago. I didn't feel like you loved me 10 years ago. Maybe you don't love me now.
Yeah. And also, I've noticed it's kind of like, please tell me it's not true, and that you've changed your mind about it. You said that, and please tell me that that's not what you felt. That's the other part of that dance too. I want you to tell me I'm all right, because I don't feel all right, and you've made me not feel all right. And of course, this is back to what I've talked about before, which is when you expect somebody outside of yourself to make you feel all right, it's because you're overlooking the sides of yourself that you're judging and seeing it in the other person. It's a reflection from inside out. And often we attract people, conversations and people into our lives that reflect that which we judge in ourselves, on the journey of learning to realize that it's not about changing the other person, it's about shifting ourselves. And that's where elevated listening and communicating becomes really powerful when we realize it has nothing to do with anything or anybody around us. It all starts from within. And it's internal. It's an internal process of communicating from the heart, where you start loving all aspects of yourself, all the parts of yourself that you dislike or even despise. There are parts of ourselves we despise. We really judge them when we do that. It's amazing how we reflect it out.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry about that. I thought you're finished. I was going to say we could spend literally weeks talking about how I hate myself in various ways, but we're not going to. Instead, what we're going to do is I want you to share your lioness story and how the lioness made an appearance on a very special day for you.
How Sikiliza came. Well, it's just such an amazing story, really. I met Andy 4.5 years ago, and he had recently come through a really difficult, rare leukemia and survived. I don't think many people who've had this form of leukemia have. And having just met him and understood what that transplant and the chemo had done for him or to him, at the same time, I could see that there was a man who had such depth from what he had been through. And then soon after that, I got ill. And he nursed me through that. I had a gangrenous burst appendix left in me for 24 hours by the hospital. And we always said we were happy with what we were doing, and we weren't going to get married. And then in this year, having sat COVID together, he lost all his income. He overnight with lockdown, his business shut down overnight. And we sat together through COVID in UK, where it was as good as being under house arrest. For months and months and months, we weren't really allowed out the house. And we got through all that and realized that we had really something very special, because for a man to not have an income and for us to be 24/7 in our house for nearly 2 years, we realized. Anyway, one day he said, would I go to he's a Liverpool football fan, go to Liverpool? And I said, yeah, I'll come along with you. And for some time, he had actually asked me to marry him early on. And I'd said, no, I don't see the point. It just felt right. So we're driving along up to Liverpool. And I'd already set up Sikiliza, the White Lion, with Dr. JACALYN. And I'd woken up in the morning going, if the opportunity shows itself, I'm going to suggest to Andy that he asks me again. And we're driving along and he says, we've left too late. My fault. We left too late for us to have lunch in Liverpool. But if we stop at this particular place and find the first pub, then let's have lunch there. And I said, yeah, that's a good idea. And looked at a couple of pubs online, and anyway, we took the first turning off to this little village, and then we took the first turning that showed a pub, and oh, there's a pub, yes, let's go there. And then I just got a sense as we were driving there, this is a really good time to talk with Andy about this. It just feels right. And we parked, and I got out, and I got out my phone, and I started videoing. And he's going, why are you videoing? And I went, I don't know, I just feel like videoing. And we're going along the path. And for those of you who know my story with my daughter Jenny, who passed on, 7 and 9 are very significant numbers with Jenny for me. And the name of the pub was 1643 or 1645, I think it was, which is actually the year the pub was built. So 1 and 6 is 7, and 4 and 5 is 9, and 7 and 9 adds up to 7. If you bring it all to a single digit. So there I am taking this video going, oh my word, there's 7 and 9, there's Jen. And she always sends signs of confirmation when those numbers come up. And I went, that's interesting. We get to the door of the pub, and there's the pub sign up there. And I stop and I go, the pub's called the White Lion. And we went in, and I sat there and went, it felt right. Those signs came in, half an hour before. I hadn't got an indication that it was the time. And it just went chink, chink, chink into place. And I just said to Andy, you know how we talked about this before, and would you like to still ask me? And he said, oh, yeah, absolutely. And I said, yes, and we're getting married soon. So Sikiliza and USA Global TV and Jenny and the whole thing have all married in such a special way. Just wow.
Woo! Will we be able to film the wedding, Jenetta?
Well, we were just going to go off quietly. And the more people we told, they went, what? You're not going off quietly at all. So I don't even know when it is. We were talking again this morning. We've got some ideas. But one thing's for certain, we will not get all our family there in one place at the same time. It's just not going to happen. That's pie in the sky. So whoever's there is meant to be there. And I have a Dutch friend who is a private PI here in Kenya. And she's also a really good dress designer. The moment she heard, oh, well, I know you're going to wear this and it's this color. And we were just going to go and get married quietly. But yeah. Definitely we'll do something special. I can't wait to see how I'm letting it unfold instead of saying it's got to be this way or that way, or let a heartfelt happening happen. So there we go.
And the wonderful thing is that it doesn't have to be just one ceremony. I mean, you could have one ceremony.
Well, this is true.
Parties or get-togethers or a couple of ceremonies, whatever it is that works for you.
Exactly. And in fact, at one stage we were saying, look, if you can't make it, or if we don't have too many people, if we really keep it small, what we'll do is every time we meet up with the people who are meaningful to all of this, we'll crack open a proper bottle of champagne, not Prosecco, champagne. So we'll see where it leads us.
Well, I'm so happy for you. That was a beautiful story. And before we close out, I'd like you to share another little story information about animals per se and a fabulous bike safari that is coming up very soon. Do tell.
Yeah, in a couple of weeks' time. I'm in the Great Rift Valley in the northwest of Kenya. But I'm going down to the southwest, southeast of Kenya towards the coast, towards Mount Kilimanjaro. And we actually have a paraplegic person joining us from Spain, a friend of Karen Dark's. And a group of us are traveling from the base of Mount Kilimanjaro through Tsavo Game Park West, over into Tsavo Game Park East, and through to Watamu Beach on the north coast of Kenya. And even though I'm not cycling, everybody else is. And it's the most wonderful opportunity because Chris Angel really knows his onions when it comes to the bush, to cycling. They even provide the bike for you. But we do have people who are not biking like me, and we have people who are only biking some of the way because they're not fit enough. You decide what you want to do. And yeah, so we've got this over 6 days, 6 nights, staying at 6 very, very special lodges and camps on the way. You can cycle past all the wild animals, and Chris knows how to handle that. He's done many such bike rides, very experienced guide, and there are backup vehicles, and it's all to raise funds for World Jenny's Day. This World Jenny's Day is also on the 10th of October, is going to raise funds, and we're looking to have a gala dinner with theatre and the arts next year, either in New York or London. And all these funds this year will work towards that, where we're changing conversations on depression, suicide, and their solutions through the use of theatre and arts. Powerful use.
Jenetta, I just have to commend you for everything that you're doing. I know it's so much work to put on events like this. People have no idea, unless they have a background in meetings and events, what it takes to put something like this together. So it's for such a good cause. And I'm so happy to be a small part of it here with World Jenny's Day. That's super exciting. 5 in the
That's
morning.
a big part. That's a big part. That's not a small part. That's a big part. And yeah, from your 5 in the morning right through to your 10:30, or 10, not 10:30, 10. That's 17 hours you and I are going to be doing our cabaret on stage.
How many outfit changes, how many wardrobe changes will that be?
How many outfit changes? That's a good question. I hadn't even thought about that one. I mean, we get into our pajamas at the end of the day.
Exactly. We start in our pajamas. I start in my pajamas. You end in your pajamas.
Yes, because it's my 3 in the morning.
We'll be getting our sleep between now and then. That's all right.
And afterwards, I can tell you.
Definitely. Just not to worry.
We did 24. At least it's not 24 like last year. Oh, my word.
That would be a record. So I'm happy to go with 17 for this year, 17 hours.
Oh, how special is that? Just so precious. And it's coming together nicely. So if anybody would like to know how they can perform, they can be an actor, a singer, any type of performer, whether it's a comedian or a tap dancer or a choir, can even a band, whatever it is, come forward and come and be with us as we celebrate mental health wellness on World Jenny's Day on the 10th of October. Be lovely to have you there.
Thank you so much, Jenetta, and thank you for being such a big part of this platform and for being an elevated listener, a co-host, a talking head, a panelist. It's just phenomenal. I really do love you and thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, well, the feeling's mutual, dear lady. And I mean, the fact that we've synergized and meeting such fabulous people together, yeah, it's really, really amazing. My heart is full.
My heart is full as well. And thank you for being here in this episode. We'll see you tomorrow for is it 3 or 4 shows?
4 shows tomorrow. We've got Mara the storyteller, who, by the way, is performing on the Fringe of West End in London. She's from Kenya, and she's an amazingly talented girl. And then we've got my son Neil talking about African adventures.
That's right. Our new show starts tomorrow, Global Adventures.
Yes. Oh, wow. Global Adventures. To me, that I love the best, because when you can have a show that's not about travel, it's about having people on that talk about amazing things that have happened on their way of being on an adventure. And Neil and I were sharing some stories in preparation over the weekend for this show, because this one tomorrow, he's going to be talking a bit of his backstory, his childhood in Kenya, and where it's led him and what he's done. And then the other episodes, at the end of last year, he piled his 2-year-old and his 6-year-old daughters and wife into his 4x4, and they went on a 3-month safari no school. Well, it was as good as school. What they did in those 3 months, those two little girls, no school education could give them. And they camped right the way through from Botswana through to South Africa, to Namibia, up to Angola, to the Caprivi Strip, right over to Zimbabwe, and then through to the coast of Mozambique over 3 months. And the stories he has to tell with that. So we're talking about adventures. Then we've got somebody else that's going to be talking about their adventure by boat to Antarctica and what they did and what they experienced there. Another one we've got is going to Ethiopia. So I don't know if many people know how ancient Ethiopia is and how connected to King Solomon Ethiopia is, and the Coptic church there, because the Haile Selassie is supposed to be related and come from the line of King Solomon. And so the churches are in rock faces, a bit like Jordan. And it's the original Coptic church. It is an incredible, incredible country and experience. We've got somebody talking about that experience as well. And I've got some more in the pipeline coming through. So tune into Global Adventures. It should be great fun.
Global Adventures, that's tomorrow, Wednesday, right? Wednesday.
It
and let me
is.
just put up the
Yes.
graphic again. And it's at 12 p.m. noon, which is 5 p.m. British Summer Time, 6 p.m. Central European Time. And Jenetta, where you are?
At 7 p.m. in Kenya. Yeah.
All right.
So
We'll look
7
forward to
p.m.
seeing everybody there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful, and just lovely spending time with you again. And as always, I so enjoy participating with our viewers and listeners. Look forward to being with you again soon, like tomorrow.
Thanks, Jenetta. Have a beautiful rest of your evening.
Bye. Lots of love.
Lots of love to you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for watching or listening, whether it's on the live or the replay. We really appreciate it. Just one quick announcement. I started back doing my planks. If any of you know me or you've been following me, I'm kind of a fitness guru, psycho. So, meaning that I have to exercise, and every time I exercise, I have to push myself to extremes. And of course, nothing extreme like Guinness World Records or professional athletes. I'm just kind of kidding for a 59-year-old. That's what I mean. And I started doing planks again. I was doing planks when I was in Florida for Solid Core. But here in New Jersey, I have to plank on my own. So I thought to myself, wouldn't it be fun if I had some people who want to plank with me? So one of our team members today, Red, and I met about something else, and he came up with the idea. And he has, he's decided we should call it USA Global Plank Holders, USA Global Plank Holders. So if you would like to plank with me, I'm going to be starting a half-hour show about fitness and things that you can do from your home or your office or wherever you are. And part of that will be doing a plank. So I'll be doing it live with you. And the other day I got up to 11 minutes with a straight arm plank. Of course, there's straight arm and then there's bent arm. The straight arm is more of your upper body, your shoulders, and core, obviously, and your legs. But the bent arm, I believe, is more of just your core. So my core is pretty strong. So I've been working on my shoulders and my upper body. So if you're interested in joining me, I'll be putting out the information about how you can do that. We'll be planking together as well as doing some other fun things that I think are really important as we age for our posture and also not just our physical, but also our emotional well-being. So hopefully you'll join me for that. USA Global Plank Holders. I had to look it up again. Plank Holders. Okay, I'll be putting information out about that. That's actually our last show for today. Our guests for the next show had to postpone. So we'll be back tomorrow with 9 shows. I'll see you then. Thanks so much. Bye.